Everybody knows that Italy fought on Germany's side in World War II, and it didn't really do that good. In fact, there's an argument to be made that Italy dragging Germany into the Balkans was one of the main reasons why Germany lost the war. That's something Adolf himself said. But fewer people know that Italy actually tried to organize an anti-German alliance during the 1930s. This of course failed. Mussolini sided with Germany, and the rest is history. But what if Italy sided with the Allies during World War II? This is What, Why, How, and that's what the video's about. If you like this sort of thing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out patreon.com/whatwhyhow for early access to future videos. Okay, let's talk about real history for a minute. While Hitler had ideological overlap with Mussolini, they had contradictory territorial ambitions. Germany wanted union with Austria. They actually wanted that for a long time, but with Hitler seemed more committed to the goal. While Italy, of course, didn't want a gigantic, terrifying Germany just north of its border, especially because Italy snatched a chunk of Austrian land, South Tyrol, after World War I. Later on, Mussolini pointed out that Austria being absorbed by Germany would also give Germany the ability to dominate the Balkans. So in September 1933, Mussolini and the Soviet Union signed a treaty of friendship, non-aggression, and neutrality. In 1934, Austria seemed on the verge of chaos, as fighting escalated between the Social Democrats, the Catholic right led by Chancellor Dollfuss, and the pro-German National Socialists. In July, the National Socialists assassinated Chancellor Dollfuss. While Germany might have tried to annex Austria then, Italy mobilized its army and scared Germany off. In March 1935, Germany renounced the disarmament clauses of the Treaty of Versailles. With German remilitarization picking up speed, Italy turned to Britain and France. In April, the leaders of the three countries gathered in Stresa, Italy. But as you could probably predict from anything Britain touched in the 1930s, their agreement wasn't beefy enough to actually stop Germany. It's not even worth covering in detail. Mussolini, though, realized that His Majesty's government had no intention of taking any part in the effective defense of the independence of Austria. If there were now to be an accident in Austria, Italy would, at present, for geographical reasons, be alone in meeting the danger. And obviously, Italy didn't want this. They didn't want to confront Germany alone. While the so-called Stresa Front wasn't an anti-German defense pact, it did give Mussolini the breathing space to gear up for his conquest of Ethiopia. At first, Mussolini thought he could get away with it, but Britain surprised him by pressuring Italy not to invade Ethiopia, while at the same time seemingly abandoning their mutual approach against Germany. On 18 June 1935, Germany and Britain signed a new naval agreement, allowing Germany to violate the Treaty of Versailles. Also on May 11th, Mussolini met with the Chancellor of Austria, but he was reluctant to accept Italian patronage, no matter what grave perils his country faced. Although aware that Austria alone could not repel a German attack, he favored a European defense over Italian military assistance. Meanwhile, the Balkan countries Italy needed for any anti-German alliance shifted closer and closer toward Germany. If you were Mussolini, what would you do? You could dash all your ambitions on the mountains of Austria, trying and probably failing to stop Germany, or you could sacrifice Austria and look to Africa. Mussolini decided to sacrifice Austria for Ethiopia. On October 3rd, Italy invaded Ethiopia. Afterward, Britain and France led the League of Nations in imposing limited sanctions on Italy, but they really just pissed Mussolini off and drove him closer to Germany. It was another half measure. Both Britain and France didn't want to push Italy too hard. They could have closed the Suez Canal and imposed sanctions on oil, which would have crippled Italy. Mussolini might have even been toppled in a coup if they did that. But Britain and France didn't actually care very much about Ethiopia and still hoped to keep Italy in their camp against Germany. But they couldn't have ignored Italy's invasion. The public was outraged, and Mussolini's aggression threw the whole post-war order into chaos and provided an example for Hitler to follow. So instead they did a half measure and got the worst of both worlds. Ethiopia went Italian, and Italy went to Germany. So in 1938, Germany annexed Austria. The next year, World War II began, and in June 1940, Italy invaded France. So what could have gone differently? Well, to avoid Italy splitting from Britain and France, you gotta find some way for Mussolini to not invade Ethiopia. Mussolini wanted to do this for a long time though, but if there was some major distraction in Europe, he wouldn't have been able to do that. Now maybe the Spanish Civil War could have happened earlier, But in that case, Italy still would have eventually sided with Germany. Instead, let's rewind back to 1934. If you remember that Chancellor of Austria, Dollfuss, was assassinated. Before his assassination, Hitler met Mussolini in Venice to discuss their disagreements over Austria. Hitler wanted Italy to, of course, back off and allow for Austrian elections, which the pro-Germans probably would have won. Mussolini said he was willing to accept a coalition cabinet, including Nazi sympathizers, so long as it was one dominated by Dollfuss. So let's change things around slightly. Mussolini is in a better mood in Venice and offers to make more concessions to Germany in exchange for German support for Italy's conquest of Ethiopia. Hitler extrapolates from this that Mussolini doesn't really care too much about Austria, that he won't react if Germany gains greater power in Austria. Germany sends more aid to the National Socialists, who assassinate Dollfuss, like real life, in July. Like real life, they also attempt to seize power in a putsch, but unlike in real life, with greater resources from Germany, they gain more ground. So a three-way civil war erupts in Austria between the Italophiles, the Germanophiles, and the left. The fate of Europe is going to be decided in the mountains of Austria. So Italy sends 4 divisions into Austria to fight and calls for Britain and France to help. Now, Germany doesn't want to get into a war before its remilitarization and rearmament is complete, but it does see Austria as a mandatory part of the Third Reich. So instead it sends German forces who disguise themselves as Austrian paramilitaries. It also sends plenty of weapons too. Soon, Germany and Italy are clashing in the mountains of Austria, but they don't declare war on each other just yet. In late August, the leaders of Britain and France meet with Italy. Unlike real life, they provide much greater support since Germany's danger is obvious, but they don't commit to fight Germany just yet. The civil war in Austria continues much longer than Italy hoped, especially because the challenges of mountain combat. Mussolini sends more and more divisions, bleeding the Italian army, and ultimately he triumphs over the anti-Italians and puts a loyalist in charge in Vienna in early 1936. But partisans continue to fight against the government, while to the north, Germany supercharges its rearmament program. Since Italy is in poor shape after the Austrian War and is much more scared of Germany, Mussolini postpones the invasion of Ethiopia again and again, and instead focuses on securing British and French commitment to an anti-German alliance. Hitler is of course enraged by all of this, but he delays the annexation of Austria. Instead, he remilitarizes the Rhineland in 1936 and sets his targets for Czechoslovakia. Italy, France, and Britain double down on their commitments to Czechoslovakia, while the Soviet Union also offers some support. Like real life, civil war erupts in Spain, but Germany and Italy send less support to Franco since they have to keep resources tied up, staring at each other in the Alps. This means that the Republicans might win that war, or at least it takes longer for the nationalists to win. In 1937, Germany begins to apply significant pressure on Czechoslovakia to give up the Sudetenland, which is the German majority border region. While Prime Minister Chamberlain of Britain doesn't want a second world war, France and Italy together are ready to confront Germany. Germany's generals warn Hitler that they can't afford a confrontation with the West yet, but Hitler's political position is weakening after the embarrassment of Austria, so he plunges ahead. When Czechoslovakia refuses to back down, German troops cross the border. Czechoslovakia fights back and declares war on Germany alongside its allies, Italy and France. War has begun. But even though the German military isn't very strong yet, France and Italy aren't very strong either. For one, Germany's side of the border with France is fortified. Germany has also fortified Bavaria too, but Italy is able to send soldiers around into Czechoslovakia through Austria to join the defense. Germany throws his army against Czechoslovakia's defenses, but despite Hitler's expectations of an easy triumph against the inferior Slavs, Germany fails to make gains. Meanwhile, British diplomatic pressure grows, and France prepares to cross the border into Germany. To the east, Poland was hoping to take chunks out of Slovakia, but it realizes that Germany's gonna lose the war, so instead it turns its sights on Danzig. The Soviet Union takes advantage of this crisis to sweep over the Baltics, citing the risk of German invasion. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania all falling to the Soviet Union. It only receives light diplomatic condemnation since it's providing important military aid to Czechoslovakia. As months go by and Germany makes zero progress, the German military pins the blame on Hitler. They were hesitant to fight so soon in the first place after all. In September 1937, the German military seizes power in a putsch, toppling Hitler and bringing to power a junta led by Minister of War Werner von Blomberg, Chief of the General Staff Ludwig Beck, and Commander-in-Chief Werner von Fritsch. The military purges Hitler's loyalists and massacres the SS. Germany descends into a week of bloodshed. Adolf Hitler is found dead in a jail cell. Meanwhile, fighting in Czechoslovakia is frozen. Soon afterward, in exchange for international recognition, the German junta withdraws from the Sudetenland. While some in Italy and France want to press the victory to split up Germany, others are more wary of overextending. Germany isn't completely weak. So with Germany backing down, the two sides agreed to a peace treaty in 1938, ending the early war early. While politicians in London and Paris celebrate the low cost of triumph over Hitler, this is actually a disaster in the making. The military leaders of Germany are much more cautious and wise than Hitler, but they still hold his commitment to domination of Europe. Instead of launching a war before Germany was fully ready, they doubled down on rearmament and industrialization, scheduling a rematch for 1950, once Germany is fully ready to take on the world. In Rome, Mussolini has proven himself a capable leader. Assuming that Britain and France won't mind, Mussolini launches his hoped-for invasion of Ethiopia, but his allies respond harshly, imposing tough sanctions. Italy barely manages to win, but Mussolini realizes his alliance with the Western allies just isn't gonna last long. Instead, he begins seeking friendship with Germany. The Soviet Union, meanwhile, has its own ambitions for expanding into Europe, and it might, reach out to Germany and Italy about that. But what do you think would happen? Would Germany, Italy, and the Soviet Union split Europe between them? Will Germany and Italy be the core of a new third bloc in a Cold War opposed to both communism and liberalism? Comment below to let me know, and if you like this video, why not support the channel on patreon.com/whatwhyhow for early access to future videos. Thanks to those who already do, and adios.